Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters of Burkina Faso, friends across West Africa and the broader continent, allow me to speak to you tonight about more than the reopening of a factory. I speak to you about renewal, about industrial courage, and about a tangible example of how a nation can choose to stand up, rebuild, and shape its own future. Today, we celebrate SN Brafaso, Brafaso Reborn, a name many of you know from years gone by, a place that once fell silent, that became shorthand for machines and dreams halted. Its revival and its inauguration by President Captain Ibrahim Traoré mark something concrete: state will and national industry meeting in a single project to create jobs, revive value chains, and send a signal to the region that Burkina Faso intends to process its own raw materials, make its own products, and retain more of the value of what our land produces. Let us begin with a brief history, because context matters. Brafaso was founded in the early 2000s as a national brewery and beverages producer. It operated for only a few years before financial difficulties and legal processes closed it in 2008. For many years, that site, and the idea it represented, lay dormant, a symbol of lost industrial opportunity. The state and many stakeholders pursued solutions over a span of more than a decade. The decision to revive and relaunch the plant as SN Brafaso is therefore not merely a business transaction. It is an act of national economic strategy, the culmination of long effort and substantial public investment. When a factory like SN Brafaso restarts, we should measure its value in three currencies: jobs, value added, and confidence. On the jobs front, the early figures are already encouraging. The reopening is expected to directly create permanent and temporary employment. Figures cited by officials and on-site reports place the initial direct jobs in the hundreds and the broader indirect employment impact in the tens of thousands when you include suppliers, distributors, and service providers in the plant's orbit. This is not anecdote, it is concrete livelihoods returning. On investment, relaunching a major beverage factory requires capital, logistics, and a patient industrial strategy. Different public updates have listed significant amounts mobilized to bring the facility back to life. Figures reported in the public sphere vary but are not small. Those resources, whether mobilized from public coffers or via partnerships, represent a deliberate choice by the Burkina Faso state to prioritize industrial renewal and local processing over continuing dependence on imports. That's economic policy in motion, spending to secure a recurring flow of jobs, taxes, and domestic production capacity. But beyond numbers, the reopening of SN Brafaso changes the structure of local industry in measurable ways. First, import substitution and retained value. For decades, West African markets have been supplied by multinational beverage imports or by production that relied heavily on imported inputs. A modern operating national brewery reduces those imports and retains more of the value chain inside the country, from procurement of agricultural ingredients such as sorghum and millet for traditional beers, to packaging, distribution, and marketing. Keeping those value steps locally boosts rural incomes for farmers, creates manufacturing and logistics jobs, and keeps foreign currency inside national borders. This factory is therefore a tool of economic sovereignty. This is a direct effect of localized industrial capacity and the logic of value addition, now reinforced by the reopening of Brafaso. Second, revitalizing linkages to agriculture and local suppliers. A large beverage plant is not an island. It requires water treatment, electricity, glass or can suppliers, sugar or local sweeteners, malt or cereal inputs, transport and cold chain logistics, machinery maintenance, all areas where small and medium enterprises can grow. The multiplier effect is large. One production line can sustain dozens of suppliers. Early public accounts and site visits have highlighted the anticipated indirect jobs and the expected growth in supplier networks, a cascade that will touch farmers, transporters, bottling supplies, and retail. Third, modernizing industrial know-how and setting standards. Reopening after many dormant years requires not only capital, but upgrades, aligning with current environmental standards, adopting modern hygiene and quality controls, and training technicians to run newer systems. That upgrade lifts the entire ecosystem. Universities, technical schools, and training centers find new opportunities to supply the workforce, and suppliers must meet higher standards. The result is not just jobs, but stronger industrial capacity across sectors. Fourth, signaling to investors and to the West African market. A national leader personally inaugurating a major factory sends a political and economic message. Industry matters. The state is committed. Whether domestic entrepreneurs or regional investors watch this reopening closely, the signal is clear. Burkina Faso is open for serious industrial development, and it is prepared to back it. For neighboring economies, a functioning Brafaso is also a potential regional supplier, making Ouagadougou a node in West African beverage trade, not a passive consumer. Now let us speak plainly about the social and national effects. Factories shape cities and identities. Where machines hum, towns stabilize. Young people who stayed in the city for lack of opportunity now see apprenticeships. Waiters and drivers who depend on new production lines get work, and entire retail chains renew. The social cost of prolonged unemployment is real. Powering industrial absorption of labor helps reduce pressure, reduces migration to informal or risky livelihoods, and builds dignity, people earning an honest wage to support families. Public reporting at the inauguration cited thousands of indirect jobs as an expected outcome, not just a promise, but an early projection of what a working plant produces for the community. Yet with victory come challenges, and we must be candid about them. First, environmental management must be rigorous. Beverage production consumes water and generates effluents. The reopened SN Brafaso must comply with modern environmental standards, invest in waste treatment, and partner with local authorities on water resource management. The long-term sustainability of the plant, and of the community around it, depends on responsible operations. Second, local sourcing must be prioritized in practice, not just on paper. If the factory relies excessively on imported inputs, the promised multiplier for farmers and suppliers will falter. Policies and procurement practices must intentionally favor Burkinabe farmers and manufacturers, with clear technical assistance programs to help suppliers meet quality and volume requirements. Third, skills and technology transfer should be institutionalized. The factory cannot be a black box owned by a few technicians. It must be an anchor for vocational training, internships, and partnerships with technical schools, so that the next generation owns the knowledge and the skills needed for maintenance, quality assurance, and innovation. Fourth, governance and transparency. Where large public resources are mobilized, citizens need clear reporting on investments, operating models, and projected socioeconomic returns. Trust is built through transparency. The story of Brafaso's earlier years taught the country hard lessons about corporate governance and financial oversight. The new era must learn from those lessons and embed accountability. If these challenges are met, the benefits will multiply for Burkina Faso and for West Africa. Why does SN Brafaso matter beyond national borders? West Africa's industrialization remains uneven. Much of the region exports raw materials, but imports finished consumer goods. When a national brewery scales up and exports to neighboring markets, it rewrites that script. Instead of exporting grain and importing bottled beverages, we produce locally and sell regionally. A successful SN Brafaso can therefore become a model for value chain localization across the Sahel and West African Economic and Monetary Union (UMOA) partners. It can show that industrial revival is possible even in difficult security and economic contexts when political will and pragmatic investment align. We have seen in recent months a wave of attention on Brafaso's relaunch, public ceremonies, coverage on national media, and social reaction. These are not trivial. They reflect national pride and hope. But our work does not end at the ribbon cutting. The inauguration is a beginning, the moment when commitment must become sustained action. Procurement policies favoring local suppliers, environmental regulation enforced, training programs scaled up, and transparent reporting on jobs and local procurement. To the people of Burkina Faso, I say, this factory is yours. Its success depends on you, your willingness to supply, to train, to buy local, to hold operators and public managers accountable. To regional leaders and private investors, I say, watch closely, partner meaningfully. There are opportunities for equitable supply agreements, for technical collaborations, for logistical partnerships that will make Brafaso a regional success story. To President Ibrahim Traoré and those who mobilize the resources, and to those who labored to bring the machines back to life, you have done something tangible that will be measured in jobs, in incomes, in the hum of production, and in the steady tax revenues that allow a state to invest in schools and hospitals. That is the highest form of public service, not mere announcements but investments that produce recurring public value. Public coverage and official statements at the inauguration confirm the scale and public priority placed on the project. Before I close, let me offer 3 short recommendations to ensure SN Brafaso's success becomes sustainable and replicable. 1. Institutionalize local procurement quotas and support packages for farmers and SMEs so that linkages to the rural economy are permanent, not temporary. 2. Establish a joint technical training center co-run by the factory and local vocational institutes to guarantee skills transfer and long-term maintenance capacity. 3. Publish annual impact reports on employment, local sourcing, environmental performance, and finances, so citizens and partners can see progress and intervene where needed. In every industrial renaissance, there is a moral dimension. Will we seize the moment to build institutions and habits that outlast political cycles? Will we ensure the factory benefits the many, not just the few? I believe the answer is yes, because the very energy we see in Ouagadougou today, the cheers, the hopeful conversations, the thousands of indirect jobs projected, reveal a nation ready to transform potential into prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, Brafaso is more than a plant. It is a statement that Burkina Faso will process its own produce, hire its own people, and stake a claim in West Africa's industrial future. The road ahead will demand prudence, transparency, and steady investment in people. But the machines are turning again. The lights are on in the factory hall, and with them a new current of possibility runs through our towns and fields. Let us honor the effort that brought this plant back to life by ensuring it becomes a seed of durable industrial development for Burkina Faso, for the Sahel, and for West Africa at large.